Welcome to this week's episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in as little as 15 minutes to build your dream business. And now here's your host, the Visibility Wiz, Cindy J.
Hi, I'm Cindy J, the Visibility Wiz, and welcome to this episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts are going to share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in 15 minutes or less. Today, our guest is Ricky Shetty. He's known as the Daddy Blogger and is the host of the Digital Nomad Mastery podcast. After his beautiful baby daughter Diane was born, Ricky launched his website Daddy Blogger with the purpose to bring change to the world one dad at a time. In late 2016, Ricky and his family decided to follow their passion to travel the world. And on December 6th, they started their Daddy Blogger World Tour that will take them to Asia, the Middle East, Africa, South America, and Central America. Now Ricky's a full-time digital nomad and is passionate about teaching others to become digital nomads through his Digital Nomad Mastery business. You're really living the business dream, and I love this. Welcome, Ricky. It's a pleasure to have you.
Cindy J, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. We had a chance to interview you on my show, and now thanks for returning the favor and having me as a guest in your show. Definitely an honor and a pleasure, so thanks so much.
Oh, it's truly our pleasure here. And to begin with, Ricky, before we get into your business and traveling, could you share a personal or business challenge that you had to overcome in order to achieve your level of success?
Yeah, absolutely. You get right down to it, and I love it. No beating around the bush. So I'm from Vancouver, BC, Canada, and now I'm actually nowhere near there. I'm actually in Taipei, Taiwan, and we're traveling around the world. But I wanted to share with you, why did I actually leave Vancouver, BC, Canada? Because a lot of people ask me this question, why did you decide to travel the world? And it had to do with what you're referring to, my challenge, my struggle. And I actually went through this really big bout of depression 2 years in a row. I was running events in Vancouver. I was an event producer running smaller meetups for like 20, 30 people, but also workshops, like one-day workshops, but also bigger conferences, like 200 to 300 people, like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event, multi-day, multi-speaker events with big budgets and big marketing and, big audiences. But at the end of the day, it was a challenge for me because I would be stressed out, I would be irritable, I would be burning the midnight oil with running these events, I'd be working like 15-hour days. So for those of your listeners who are event producers or run any kind of event, you'll know it's quite challenging. So I went through these dark times just because I had a couple of failures in my conferences. So I ended up losing money. I put in so much effort into producing amazing conferences. And on the surface, the conferences looked amazing, but I ended up losing money. And because I did, I felt I was a failure. I had a lot of inner guilt and shame. I isolated myself. I didn't want to talk to people. And a lot of entrepreneurs go through these dark times financially, and they isolate themselves. And I did that. And unfortunately, unfortunately, I didn't reach out and ask for help. But fortunately, I've overcome it. And now we decided to make radical changes. We left our hometown of Vancouver, BC, Canada, and we started traveling. So now we've been traveling since December 6th of 2016, and we changed that negative circumstance, my depression, kind of the business instability, and we turned it into positive, which is traveling with my wife. We have 3 young kids. We're working online, and we're seeing the incredible world that we live in. So that, in a nutshell, is my backstory and one of the challenges that I've been able to overcome.
Well, thank you so very much for sharing that. And I think that's so important because so many of us, when we start our business, we think of, all this huge success, and we're really start businesses for more freedom. But what happens, like in your case, it took away all your freedom. You're working 15 or 16 hours a day, and I'm sure you wasn't being the dad at that time that you wanted to be, which added to your depression and challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was still investing quality time with my kids because I was working from home. A lot of the stuff I could actually do online in terms of I was marketing and doing social media and email blasts, but I wasn't investing that quality attention focus time with
Right.
them. So the kids would be around, but I'd be glued to the device, right? I'd be glued to typing away. My mind would be focused on my events. My kids might be like screaming or yelling or like wanting my time to play the games. So I felt very much hypocritical because my big mission is obviously like fatherhood and family and marriage. And I wasn't being the dad I needed to be. I wasn't being the husband I needed to be to my wife. So I really feel that event production for me personally detracted from my life mission, which is, this whole area of building strong families. So there was definitely this dichotomy, and I had to drop one to focus on the other. And I'm so glad I had the courage to drop that.
Yes, exactly. And I know that it's one of the things that I love about your business is that you have developed your business that's really aligned with what's important to you, your personal values, your personal commitments. And this is what's led you to write your 4 books, one on marriage, one on parenting, one on fatherhood, and one on family. So how has all of this came together for you to develop a business that you're really passionate about that allows you to be the digital nomad?
Great question, Cindy J. So what is, as I was making this transition out of event production into internet marketing, back in Vancouver, I was already doing internet marketing. So I was making the side hustle as an internet marketer and the full-time income as an event producer. And I was looking at what was working in terms of the side hustle. And for those of you who don't know, it's basically like you could be working a 9-to-5 job, you could be working in a type of business where you're not super passionate about, but you really want to do something else. So I was, and still am, passionate about event production in the sense of the community aspect of it. I just didn't like the whole event planning stress side of things. But the community, the finished product, I love it. Still, even now, I love producing workshops when I travel and doing events when I travel, but not the scale I did it before. So in terms of side hustles, I was doing my travel blog, daddyblogger.com, and it wasn't generating a full-time income. And I was just doing it on the side. I would get sponsors, I would get affiliates. And then through that, I started getting coaching clients. So people would ask me like, hey, Ricky, how did you build up this successful blog? You have a massive following. You got all these sponsors reaching out to you. When you're traveling, you're getting sponsored hotels and sightseeing and food and transport. How are you doing it? So I just started coaching people on it. I didn't have a program. I hadn't got to Coaches Certification Academy or whatever. I just started teaching what I knew. And soon that clientele started growing, and I started gaining clients, losing them, losing them. And now, kind of like how my business looks like now, it's very much this multiple streams of income approach. And I look at myself as an octopus. I'm an octopus with the tentacles, and I'm reaching out for different income streams. So obviously coaching is one of the best ones because you get good bang for your buck in terms of the dollar in return for your time. But in addition to coaching, I also do mastermind groups. I'm a big advocate of online courses. I actually have 12 different Udemy courses. And it was very much a trial and error process. So I started doing Udemy courses. The first one I did started doing really well in terms of organic reach and in terms of people just going to Udemy, searching for, it was around digital nomadism and travel blogging, people searching for that topic and people purchasing it. And at the end of this interview, I'll be giving your listeners that very copy of that very first course that I did. So sneak peek, you got to stay to the end.
Sneak peek,
so after that first Udemy course, it did well that I decided to create more. So now I have 12 courses on 12 areas to do with internet marketing. I went on personal branding. I went on social media marketing. I went on YouTube marketing. I went on how to get into the media. I went on travel blogging, being a digital nomad. I went on how to become an Amazon bestselling author, and a few more on the internet marketing kind of area. And then book publishing. So I have 4 different books. I have one book about fatherhood, one book about marriage, one book about parenting, and then I have a new book series that's all about family travel. And it has 7 books about the 7 continents. I have South America, and then I have North America. I'm producing Europe and Asia, and then Australia, Africa, and Antarctica. So 2 are done, and then 5 more are left to go. And it's basically just a kids' book series. So we're inspiring kids to travel from a young age. So the book publishing is another income stream, another tentacle, so to speak. And then affiliate marketing, travel blogging, getting sponsorships, and a few other things, like I've done virtual summits. We've both done that, Cindy. I have the podcast too. I've interviewed 450 guests. But honestly, I don't make income through the podcast directly. Like some people might have sponsored by ABC company. I don't have that. I just talk about what I do, and if people find me and they hire me. So I'll talk about my coaching, and I'll talk about my travel blog and my courses and my books, and people will purchase all those things. So indirectly, I do also generate income from the podcast. So those are some of the ways that we're able to generate that income to continue to travel.
What I really love, what really struck my attention is that whenever you began with what you knew. And so many people, whenever they first start out, they think they have to learn all this other stuff, or they think they have to get all these, go and get their coaching certificate or do this or do that. And you just was sharing from your heart. And I think that's one of the things that's made you so hugely successful, is that from day one, you shared with your heart. And as you learned more, you shared more. But you didn't go out and think, I have to know all this stuff before I do anything.
That is the only way I know how to share, Cindy J. Even when you first started this interview, I just shared. I went through a dark time with depression, and most people don't understand. They're like, "What? How come you're admitting that publicly?" Well, it is what it is. I went through a dark time. I overcame it, and I want to help others who are still going through dark times. I've gone through financial hardships. I've gone through rocky times in my marriage. I haven't been the best dad as I could be. I haven't been the best husband, and it's okay. I'm okay with that, and I think. If you're not okay with that, you have a problem, because there's no perfect husband, no perfect father, there's no perfect wife or mom, and there's no perfect business owner or entrepreneur or human. So you got to kind of give yourself permission to be you. And I'm okay with just being me. That's hard enough.
And I love that that's it. It's just permission to be you. You mentioned the digital nomad. How did you come up with that name? And for other people that may want to go out there and be a digital nomad, what's some of the first steps that they can take?
I am so glad you asked. And I never got these questions in advance. I'm just shooting from the hip here, Cindy. But I'm glad you asked this question about, what is a digital nomad and how can you get started? People listening and watching here. So in terms of what is a digital nomad, let's define that term first. Basically, it's like it sounds. A digital nomad. A digital person is someone who's making money online through internet marketing, through maybe having an e-commerce site, doing social media, doing coaching and consulting, doing website design, graphic design, affiliate marketing, travel blogging, podcasting, YouTube marketing, and the list goes on and on. So as long as you're able to generate income online, you're classified as an internet marketer or a digital not the nomad part. The nomad part comes into basically a digital entrepreneur. And then when you go from a digital entrepreneur to a digital nomad is when you take your entrepreneurial venture on the road. And you could do it in obviously your home city, your home country, your home state, your home province, or you can travel the world as long as you have internet, which most of the world does have internet unless you're in the middle of the Amazon. From previous experience, I was in the middle of the Amazon last year in Brazil, and there was no internet for 4 days. Or if you're in a remote part of Africa, or, if you're in some remote mountain somewhere, you're not going to have internet. But if you're in any major city, in any major town, in every major country or continent, you're going to have internet. Not always the best internet, as you might see from this interview. Maybe there might be some hiccups or some lags, but hey, that's part of the internet marketing nomad journey, is you won't have perfect internet. So that's what a digital nomad is, someone who works online and they're traveling as well. So they're working while traveling, which is the dream of a lot of people, to make money and travel the world. Well, now we have the solution, which is the internet. Through the internet, you can make money and see this amazing world that we live in. So in terms of how, let's break down the practicality so we can add a lot of value for your audience here today, Cindy J. So how do you do it? I have a formula. It's called the 4 steps to travel the world. And I usually do this with my coaching and consulting. So you guys are in for a treat, because I'm giving you a lot of value for free, just because I love what you're doing, Cindy J, and I really want to support it. So what does it look like, the 4 steps? It is the 4 S's. It's saving, selling, getting sponsors, and getting a salary. So saving and selling is kind of obvious. You got to save for a rainy day, save for your travel budget. Put aside maybe $50 a month, $100 a month just for travel. And then obviously cutting back on those expenses like eating out, the latte factor. I don't know if you guys know that term, but basically means if you just cut back on your coffee expenses at like things like Starbucks or Tim Hortons or one of the chains, you can save money towards your travels. So it's saving, and then it's selling. You got to make a decision whether you're going to sell, like go crazy and sell your home and your cars and your furniture, your gadgets, your technology, or whether you're just going to sell the unnecessarily materialism, which will obviously help finance your trip as well. And you got to decide on the length. Are you going to travel for 3 months, 6 months, a year, indefinitely, right? So if you're going to travel indefinitely, then you can sell everything. If you're going to travel for 3 months, if you sell everything, you won't have anything to come back to. So you might want to instead rent it out on Airbnb or VRBO or long-term rental, right? Getting a long-term rental for your home so that you have something to come back to. So saving, selling, and then sponsorship. So this is something I teach, which is using a blog to get free hotel stays, free sightseeing tours, free meals at restaurants by writing about the restaurants, and transport like flights, buses, trains, cruises, like even in Europe, if you want to travel in Europe, Eurail, the train company there, they work with bloggers. Greyhound and companies like that, they work with bloggers to promote their companies. Flights is a little bit harder, but if a company or airline has a new flight, they usually get media on board to write about, to promote the new flight, like Los Angeles to Auckland, New Zealand, for example, right? If there's a new flight that American Airlines has just introduced, then they'll be like, hey, we need to get some promotion and coverage that there's a direct flight to New Zealand from California, right? So then they invite bloggers and influencers and YouTubers to write about them and promote them across the web through the new media channels, like podcasters like yourself and YouTubers and bloggers, social media people, etc. So that's the sponsorship side of things. And obviously I'm kind of rushing it. I could go into a lot more detail about all of these. And finally is the salary side of things. So you got to figure out how you're going to generate income while traveling, right? Because if you just rely on savings alone, you're going to run out of money. You're going to end up broke, and you're going to go back and having to save up for the next trip. And then it's a cycle that's unending, right? But if you can find a way to sustain yourself by using this octopus analogy I mentioned, so the multiple streams of income where you're generating income through multiple sources, the patchwork income, I look at it like you're generating income from your coaching, from your travel blog through sponsorships, from your Udemy courses, from your Kindle sales, from your e-commerce site, and you have your $2,000 to $3,000 a month income, which is more than enough you need to be in places like Asia, where I'm in Taiwan. We can live as a family of 5 in like the Philippines for under $2,000, under 2,000 US a month. And we're staying right now we're staying in Manila, not in Manila, but just north of Manila, in a 2-bedroom house overlooking the ocean for only 300 US per month, which is a steal. In my hometown of Vancouver, BC, Canada, if I had to spend $300 US, I'd get a corner bedroom somewhere in the basement. Right. I wouldn't get an ocean view house with 2 bedrooms. So it just shows you places like Asia are dirt cheap for someone who's making US money. So travel to some of the cheaper parts. That's what I would suggest as well. Asia, South America, Central America, and Africa are going to do your travel budget a lot of good, as opposed to North America, where we're both from, Canada, US. Europe, obviously, quite expensive, and then Australia and New Zealand area is quite expensive relative to Asia and Africa and South America. So that, in a nutshell, is my 4 steps. You asked me for a few steps to get started. Well, there you go, 4 steps. Hopefully that helps.
That helps a lot. And also I wanted to ask you, how do you're traveling the world with your family and you're running a business. So how do you manage to stay consistent while keeping your sanity?
That's another great question. You are full of amazing questions, Cindy J. So in terms of keeping my sanity, I don't always, they say, here's the crazy ones, the misfits, the people who don't belong because the world belongs to them. Something like that Steve Jobs said, right? So the really crazy ones are the ones that really make a big dent in this universe, right? They choose to be different and unique and not live according to the norms of society. So in terms of your kind of more practical question about discipline and productivity on the road, it's a good question. So some of the strategies I use are prioritization, right? So making priorities. So I happen to be a Christian, so faith is number one, family is number two, finances and fun and focus. And I have these like 5 F's, and I use that as my foundational pillars for my life, for my business, for my family. I'm always measuring that. Am I focused too much on my finances? Well, then my priorities aren't aligned, right? I got to make sure faith and family come over finances. So making sure my priorities are intact, not only in speech, but also in my calendar. So we're here in Taiwan, and we had a date night just yesterday, me and my wife. We went to a famous local restaurant. We had some pork dumplings. We went to Taipei 101, which is a famous tower here. And we needed that quality marital bliss, the time together, right? And we need that even in the midst of a travel to nurture the marriage. I need to nurture each relationship with my 3 kids. I have a daughter who's 6, a son who's 4, and another son who's 2. So I've chosen to spend time with Rianne, my daughter, who you mentioned at the beginning, just one-on-one quality time. And she remembers those dates, daddy-daughter dates, so much. And I need to do more of them. And then my son, he likes like sports. So I take him to sporting kind of events. And then my younger baby son, I just ride him around on the stroller, right? And just nurturing the daddy-daughter, daddy-son non-communication time, because he can't speak yet. So those are my kind of ways I do it in my calendar, making sure I have a date night scheduled and time with Rianne, time with Ryan, time with Renzo scheduled. Nurturing myself, I need to do that. Like, I'm guilty. I don't go to the gym enough or work out enough. Need to work on that side of my life. And then I need to have the Ricky time to work. So usually I work late Asian times, which are early North American times. It just happens that Asia and North America are in different time zones. And I happen to be a night owl, which works really well. If I was an early bird, a whole different story. So luckily, night owls work really well with North American time zones, because right now it's like almost midnight here, but I'm full of energy, full of vitality, full of excitement. And I'm able to do these interviews just because I have a new burst of energy in the night. But in the morning, I'm like sleeping in. I'm like, oh man, is it really that early? So my wife's the opposite. She's like up and at it, chipper. She's usually going to do something before I wake up. But figuring out your zone, the time, and the personal space. So it might be a co-working space. It might just be, finding some privacy at the Airbnb or the hotel, going out to the park, and just finding that me time. So those are some tips. I can add more, but hopefully that helps.
That's great tips. Thank you very much. I could speak to you for hours. I love the information that you provide. And Ricky, can you share a strategy that our listeners can implement in 15 minutes or less to grow their own business?
Everyone's going to say social media. A lot of people are going to say social media, but I don't want to give you the social media answer, because most people give you that answer. So I want to give you like the blogging answer. So a lot of people say, is blogging dead? And the answer, me as a blogger, I'm going to be biased and say blogging is very much alive. I mean, nowadays more and more companies want to work with influencers, bloggers, Instagrammers, YouTubers, right? So I look at bloggers as kind of as part of that influencer category. So I would suggest actually spending that 15 minutes writing a quick and short blog post. And if you don't feel you can write an entire blog post in 15 minutes, maybe just write the first part. The next day, write the second part. And the third day, you write the third part. And then boom, you got yourself a blog post. And why is that 15 minutes important? And why is that blog post more important? Why is that important? Well, for SEO, search engine optimization, the more blog posts you have in terms of the content's king on Google, right? People will tell you otherwise, and they'll tell you like link backs and drive all this link from every corner of the cyberspace. Content's king, content's king, content's king. Every internet marketer will tell you that. So if you have quality content and if you have link backs and keywords, that's all going to influence your social media SEO ranking, right? So blogging is really good for SEO. It's also really good to connect with your audience. And so is podcasting, by the way. You can do a podcast in 15 minutes. You can do a YouTube video in 15 minutes. You can do a Facebook Live in 15 minutes. So there are a whole bunch of different ways. But in terms of SEO, I would say blogging's really strategic, and it helps you process. When you're actually writing stuff down, you're processing what's in your mind. You're getting down into keyboard form, into WordPress, and then ultimately you're impacting people who are reading, who are following you, your network, and You can repurpose that content in different ways. You can send it to your email list. You can put it on social media. And you can even turn it into a book. So there you go. Hopefully that helps. 15 minutes, blog,
Great.
daily blog.
Yes, and I think you actually are the first person that mentioned blogging. So thank you very much. That was a great tips for the blogging. I love the idea of, even if you can't write a whole blog in 15 minutes, to break it down. Because if you do that for 5 days, you definitely will have a blog post, and that adds to the consistency. Because Google also likes consistency, even though the content's king. So this will allow you to have one blog a week very easily.
Yep.
And Ricky, I know that you mentioned it earlier, and you have a wonderful gift to share with our community. Can you share a little bit about it and what they're going to get with it?
Yeah, I mentioned it early in the interview, and I told you guys to stick around, and congratulations, you've stuck around to the end of the podcast. Basically, I want to add value to all of you guys, and not just to this show, but ongoing. You can grab a copy of my course. I'm not selling it to you. It's a free gift, and there's no upsells. It's just a gift. Cindy J will actually have the link below, but what it is a digital nomad course where you'll learn all about how to become a digital nomad, how to start a travel blog, how to get sponsorships, how to make money online in much more detail than I was able to share on this podcast. So if you're interested in making money while traveling the world, this is my gift to you.
A wonderful gift, and I thank you so much for that. So to our listeners, you want to head on over to bizsuccessin15.com/Ricky and grab your Digital Nomad Mastery Program and be able to travel the world mostly free. And you'll also be able to re-listen to Ricky's words of wisdom. He really shared so much information, and I believe if you re-listen to it a couple times, you're going to get more and more value out of his words. Ricky, do you have any parting words for our audience?
If I can do it, so can you. I was back in my hometown in Vancouver, BC, Canada, just dreaming of traveling the world 2 years ago. I was in my depression. I was in my funk. I was just watching Netflix all the time. And I started energizing myself with the right mental mindset. I started listening to podcasts, going to seminars, reading books, and it lifted me out of my depression. And here I am, I'm no longer depressed. I'm quite happy. I'm full of life and vitality and energy. And I'm here traveling around the world. I've been to 81 countries on 6 continents. And my big goal is to be the first family to visit every single country in the world. So I'm very purpose-driven, very goal-driven. And I've gone through the dark times too. So I want to just give you guys some reassurance. If you are going through a dark time financially, if you're going through a dark time relationally, if you're going through a dark time in terms of health, there's hope at the end of that literal or metaphoric tunnel. So I just want to give you some support here that if I was able to overcome my issues and now live this wonderful life, which still has struggles, I'm still struggling, so can you. So I'm here for you, and so Cindy J, she's the queen, the Visibility Wiz, so she can definitely give you tips on visibility, and I can give you tips on being a digital nomad. So we're here for you.
Thank you, Ricky. And I love that you said it was just only 2 years ago that you was depressed and watching Netflix and stuff, because you're truly a testimony to how much a person can change their life in less than 2 years. So I honor you for that, and thank you for sharing your struggles with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. And hopefully people can relate to that vulnerable side of my journey, not just to the successes, but also to the failures and the dark times. Because there's the dark and the light, there's the Jedi and the Sith, right? And there's the good and the bad. And we all are going to face those good times and the bad times, the mountains and the valleys. So we can all do it together in community. And great job on what you're doing, Cindy J, and good job on your Facebook group. And I'm such a big fan of everything you're doing to help other entrepreneurs out.
Thank you very much, Ricky. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, feel free to share it with your friends. I know so many people want to go out there and build a business and travel the world, and Ricky has the steps for you to do it. So be sure to head on over to bizsuccessin15.com/Ricky, and you'll be able to re-listen to today's show, catch up on any past episodes that you might have missed. And while you're there, be sure to grab your free gift from Ricky, the Digital Nomad Mastery Program. With that, be sure to tune in next week for another episode. Big hugs. Bye-bye.
Big hugs. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Biz Success in 15. For all links mentioned in today's show and to watch or listen to previous episodes, visit bizsuccessin15.com. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for another amazing guest.